Okay, hello. So another video just about I guess rich companies or big companies, the cliches that surround them. I'm not an expert. I've never run a business, but I'm just using basic logic. I wouldn't make a video about this unless I felt I understood these things quite well. I'm not going to make a video about hairdressing or fashion because I don't know anything about them. I don't care about them, not particularly. But anyway, one thing, and again, a lot of this is off the top of my head or it's from the past, so I haven't done lots of research, but I think there's this idea that big companies are often corrupt, okay, or evil in some way. But I'm pretty sure, and I don't think people question this, I'm pretty sure corruption is just as common and possibly more common on the lower levels than it is on the higher levels. I've read that in a few places, and I think it's something that's not even questioned. Like, even an example would be, I don't know, you work for a certain company, a certain sales place, and you sort of sneak something out or you give it to a friend for free. You break company policy a little bit. There may be certain deals for giving discounts to people, but anyway, you break a rule and it's just something that's like $10, $20, nothing. It's like everyone does that, right? The equivalent though, if you've got $1,000 million company, I prefer not to say billion because a billion has 12 zeros, not 9 zeros, the way most people use it. I don't think that's correct. So anyway, I'd say thousands of millions of dollars, a huge company. The equivalent for them is a few $1,000,000 here or there. Everyone does it. What I'm saying is not that that's good, but just that you can't, let he or she who is without sin cast the first stone. If you've never been corrupt, then you can complain, like, to some degree. I mean, it's still bad, but um, yeah, I just think it's weird to complain about them doing corruption existing if corruption exists on all levels. And the thing is, like, why don't you start with yourself, don't be corrupt, and then see what happens. And like I said, I'm pretty sure corruption exists more on smaller scales than it does on these bigger scales. It's just when it happens on a big scale, everyone hears about it, gets really angry, and that's understandable to some degree. But just you want to put it in context. That's all. Okay, another thing I addressed briefly before is this idea of greed, that big companies are greedy. I think everyone's greedy. Everyone wants to make as much money as they can. But the thing is, that's also just being efficient, okay? You don't want to pay any more for something than you need to. If there's a cheaper price, you'll pay it. Just like companies, they don't care who they hire, as long they only care about the quality of the work that gets done and who they can get. If there's people willing to work for less, then they will get those people instead if they offer the exact same level of competency. Then that's the funny thing is, I might come back to this later, but I think Thomas Sowell had a quote: prejudice is free, discrimination has costs. Something along those lines. You can have whatever attitudes you want, racism, sexism, you can hate people, but if you actually choose not to hire certain people because of their color of their skin or whatever weird reason you got, I've got blue eyes, I'm a minority, oh, we don't want that guy because he's got blue eyes and pale skin, he can't go in the sun, he'll get sunburnt, right? That's to their detriment, okay? Because they're going to have less employees, less choice of who to get, and any company that does that is going to be in an economic disadvantage. It doesn't prove racism will disappear, but again, there's this incentive not to discriminate. So the other thing is, with greed, you can't just arbitrarily set high prices. I mentioned this before in another video. No one's obliged to buy at any given price, okay? You set whatever price you want, but if it's too high, people won't buy, and you won't make as much profit or any profit at all. Okay, another thing, this might relate to monopolies, but just let's say you've got Walmart, okay? It's a big company, big evil company, and then another company comes in next to it, okay? And then it turns out Walmart has lower prices for everything, and over time, this other company just can't keep up, and they go bankrupt, or for example, Walmart may offer to buy them, or the way people might word it is Walmart buys it to keep control of the area. You can't buy a company without them being happy to be sold. Like, they have to agree. They don't have to sell themselves to you. So if Walmart offers a price and they accept it, that's fair game. That's part of economics. You can't just say, oh, that's not allowed. But anyway, the point is, if Walmart has lower prices, it simply means they are able to produce the same quality products more efficiently. And it's not surprising. They do have a big advantage in that they're big. As soon as you're big, you have, you know, you could, I don't know how Walmart works exactly, but everything becomes more efficient on a larger scale. You don't have to be doing everything within one spot. You can be, you know, have one place that does all this kind of work, one place that does all this kind of work, and bring it all together, spread it out, distribute it. Okay, I don't know. I don't know if this is making sense, but being big often has advantages, and if they're more efficient, they deserve people's business. It's, why do we treat it as evil if they got lower prices? So underpricing a competitor is fair enough. Like, and the message to that person is either we don't even need, you know, like you need to pick up your game and try to beat Walmart in some way, or you need to find somewhere else where you can be useful or match their efficiency, or even just try to join up with them somehow. You might be able to say, I want to start up a similar store in this area. Walmart might say, yeah, sure, you can be a part of the... I don't see how it's evil for something like that to become big. Another really important thing is, I think we take it, this is hindsight bias. The example, again, would be, I feel like I keep talking about Star Wars, but it's an example. People take it for granted. In 1976, there was no such thing as Star Wars. Only in 1977, all of a sudden, everyone loves Star Wars, and everyone's on the Star Wars bandwagon, and the next one comes out. And yeah, again, we take it for granted, all the Star Wars things that exist. Of course, people want to discern the prequels a lot, but the point is the same with Google. Google did not exist. Like, in 1998, Google existed, but not in the way that it does now. I'd heard of it. I think one of my teachers recommended this little search engine called Google, and we were like, we tried it. It seemed okay. It didn't seem that great, but they were like, oh no, it's like really good. It was hilarious. None of us had heard of it. No one had heard of it. So I think we take it for granted that all the big companies that exist right now are just there out of power, which doesn't make any sense. Consider the number of competitors that were in a similar position to Google that no one's heard of now, that failed. Okay, I don't think people understand that there's so much competition, and chances are the companies that exist now, I guarantee some of it is luck. There's going to be some amount of luck, okay? That can't be denied, but some of it is going to be good decisions, like make good business decisions, being competitive, being in the right place at the right time, being innovative, being a really clever entrepreneur and thinking of an idea before anyone else thought of it and being the first one there. And to some degree, you deserve credit for that. No one should be able to just come through and say, no, you can't be. The other thing is, as these companies get rich, like I said in another video, they are not stealing wealth from anyone. They're not exploiting wealth, exploiting poor people. They are generating wealth. These companies create jobs for poor people so the poor people can get some money, and we call it exploitation. It's mind-bogglingly silly. It doesn't make any sense. Just in relation to that, if you really believe that, then why does America have the largest number of billionaires? Again, I would say 1,000 millionaires in the world. In contrast to, and yet America doesn't have the most poor people as well. How did those rich people get so rich? Oh, they stole from other countries. I don't think people understand when someone becomes super rich like that, it's because they came up with a brilliant idea, created lots of jobs, sold products that people wanted at good prices that people bought, and made huge profits. They generated wealth that everyone benefited from. They got some of it themselves. That's part of it's fair and square. I don't get the issue with it. Another thing I should mention, there's a Fortune 400. I think they have like the list of the top 400. I guess I don't know if it's richest companies each year. I guess maybe it's in terms of income, which companies had the biggest income, or I'm not sure exactly. But my brother looked at a list, and it was from I think 1992 to 2009. Or 2008, I think. It was a 17-year period, okay? So 400 companies every year for 17 years. And it found during that period, okay, so you'd expect on the one extreme, if companies have so much power, you would expect just this exact same 400 companies to stay the same throughout, with only a little bit of change, okay? On the other extreme, you might expect totally different list of companies every year. Now, it turns out the total number of companies that appeared during that 17-year period was about 3,600, okay? Now, I calculated if it was a different company every single year, if you do, or the total number of years involved is 400 times 17. So I'm pretty sure that's 6,800. Okay, 6,800 sort of years worth. If you divide that by 3,600, you get a little bit less than 2, about 1.8. What that means is each of those companies that's been on the Fortune 400 between 92 and 2008, I think, has been there for an average of 1.8 years. Okay, this is out of a 17-year period, so that's the average. On average, they'll be in the top 400 for 1.8 years, for 2 years, say. Okay, so that means a lot of them are there for 1 year. That's it. Some will be there for 2 years, but relatively few are there for, some will be 3, 4. More than that, there's going to be very few. It turns out there were only 4 companies, I didn't look up which they were, that were there for all 17 years. So it's a bit strange when people think, oh, it's just these rich companies. You don't know what the rich companies are going to be in 10 years, 20 years. It's going to be brand new companies. How did they become, where did they come from? So there is this very strong hindsight bias that we take it as the companies that exist now have always been there. They've always been evil and controlling things, when in fact they were started by people who took risks, no guarantees, many other people that failed, and through, like I said, a combination of things involving luck and involving being smart, making good decisions, learning from mistakes, being useful. Even that's an aspect of luck, is simply the skills that I have, the product that I have to offer is wanted by the world at this point in time. They end up moving up to the top. You can't get angry at them for that and suggest that they never had a right to be there. It doesn't make any sense. Another thing I thought I'd mention is a lot of people feel, CEOs, some of them for big companies have these way overpriced jobs. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, they get millions of dollars a year as their salary. Let's say I've heard an example of $59 million a year. Now, it's interesting. For one, a lot of people don't seem to complain as much about, for example, people inheriting a lot of money. Some people might have issues with that. A tennis player or a movie star or, some other sports star, should Tiger Woods not be getting that much? You've got to understand, for example, Thomas Sowell gives an example like this. If you decided not to let Tiger Woods play in some competition, you're not going to get nearly as many people coming to watch and crowds watching at home on TV. Tiger Woods generates a huge amount of revenue for any competition that has him. So he's worth that much, those millions of dollars. It's supply and demand. There's a very little supply of people like Tiger Woods and a huge demand for someone like that. The same for any sports star, any movie star, any of those sorts of things. If a movie star can draw in huge amounts of people to watch their movie, the difference with the CEO, but just the point is, people complain about CEOs in a way they don't seem to complain with these other people, maybe because they don't understand. If you've got, first off, a small company is not going to have a huge salary for a CEO. It's only the huge companies. So this is thousands of millions of dollars. Their decisions are affecting how that company progresses. So if they are able, for example, I thought of an example, if they're making decisions that affect just a small percentage of the company's sort of profits, like let's say the company's worth $4,000 million, and they make decisions that year by year increase the company's profits by 1%, even in a case where there might be a loss, instead of an 8% loss, their choices and expertise make sure that it was a 7% loss instead of an 8% loss. 1% of 4,000 million is $40 million. That means they are benefiting the company $40 million per year. So for example, in a year where the company would have lost $100 million with a different CEO, with someone didn't know what they were doing, it only lost $60 million. In a year where it would have gained $50 million, it now gains $90 million. So this person's salary would be worth, say, $25 billion, $30 million, $35 million, and the company would still be making a profit. And that person, that CEO, if they're that good and they just understand the market well enough and can keep up with things, it's hilarious to suggest that it's greed. I'm greedy, kids are greedy. They don't like sharing things. They don't get that much money. You can't just say, I'm greedy, therefore pay me that much. Those people are getting paid because they have the skills and the track record to show it. Yeah, and in terms of complaining that the money is getting wasted, it's like that person is the net. Uh, if you Yeah, the net total is a gain for the company. Okay, you spend $35 million on this person, they gain the company 40 million. It's an example, but that's how it's calculated. It's proportional to the job. Now, of course, mistakes will happen, and a person might get fired. They made some bad choices. That's not in their interest to do that. Okay, anyone would prefer to get $59 million than to be fired. And yeah, they might get a severance package of, I don't know, $5 million, $10 million, whatever. But that's in proportion to their huge salary, which was there again for a reason. And that's often made. This is how Thomas Sowell sort of explained it. I don't know if I'm doing justice because I think he explains things really well and understands them in much more depth than I have. He's done more research. But it's a bit similar to a divorce, if the easiest path may be to sort of settle and you have to pay a certain amount and then it's done. If they don't pay that person a certain amount of money, that person may be able to sue them and get more money or create more problems. And it's something they don't want to do. It's going to affect the reputation of that person. So in general, they want to pick CEOs that have shown they are able to run big companies and cause massive gains. A 10% gain for a big company is going to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. That person is worth that much. If they're able to generate that much money, turn a company in that direction, it's just simple. Okay, another thing is, and again, I'm not an expert on any of this. I know there may be some bad companies out there, but I'm saying economically it doesn't make sense for them to be malevolent or anything like that. There's a misconception, I think, that being rich means you have power, and I don't think that's quite true. Okay, I'll try to explain it. To me, government has power. If they're able to just enforce rules, enforce policies, people could just be arrested or whatever. That's power. Okay, the law has power. Rich companies, that means you've got buying power. You can buy lots of stuff, okay? But no one has to give in. If you offer a large price for something, no one has to sell it. It's the only problem I see with it is if, for example, a big company vetoes, I think that's the word or whatever, sort of lobbies for certain laws to be put in place. And that's why I think very strongly the government shouldn't be tampering or interfering with economics. The reason being, as soon as the government's got policies related to economics, that creates an incredibly strong, or just not economics, like markets and what trades are allowed and all these different rules, that creates a huge incentive for companies to try to pay money and sponsor politicians that will enforce policies that benefit them. Okay, whereas that wouldn't exist if the government completely stayed out of markets and let people trade in the way that they want to whenever they want. Anyway, again, I don't think being rich, I mean, the other example I think of is if you've got money, you can hire someone to commit a crime, but that's a crime, I'm not saying that's okay. I mean, that's the thing, if Walmart burned down a competitor, that's totally different, and there's going to be always, in theory, there should be evidence of that. There's going to be a trace. You can't do that and just, if there's ways to police that and detect if that's going on. But that's the thing. I think there's a philosophy of guilty until proven innocent with a lot of these things, which is awful and terrible. In a lot of cases, these big companies have created so much wealth for the world. Think of computer companies. Bill Gates, there's a reason he's rich. He might have got let's say $45,000 million, but in turn, the world also got at least that much value in terms of, prosperity, like machines, computers that we wouldn't have had otherwise. I'm not saying he's the only one, but he obviously did a lot, and again, maybe he was in the right place at the right time. But if it's so easy, why is it him? Why didn't someone else do it? Anyway, so I think I'll leave it there. I'm not an expert on this stuff. I'm just trying to get people to think about some of these things in different ways. So hopefully, anyway, okay, bye.